Thor: The Dark World is the sequel to Thor and the second movie in Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, if you remember from my spoiler for Thor, I thought that movie was really awesome. Just everything about it. I mean, the characters, the story, the action, I just thought they did everything that they should have done right. However, I had met a handful of people who weren't the biggest fan of the first Thor movie simply because they didn't like the idea of redemption, they didn't like that he didn't have his powers, and that he had to become the god that everyone knows him as. So now the question remains, how is this sequel going to perform? So the movie opens up in a backstory told by Odin. He explains how the universe at one point wasn't what it was just darkness. And eons ago, there was this group of beings known as the Dark Elves, led by Malekith, who wanted to return the universe into that darkness. And their intention was to use this weapon known as the Aether to destroy the Nine Realms to return the universe to its original form. Luckily, however, ancient Asgardians showed up, they defeated the Dark Elves, they sent them into exile, and they hid the Aether away where hopefully, anyway, no one would have been able to find it. Then the movie flashes back to present-day Asgard. We see Loki being presented to Odin in chains. Because, yeah, after he did the shit that he did in the Avengers, he needs his dad to slap him upside the head, because that's what any father would do. Okay, so Odin doesn't slap him upside the head, but he sentences him to the dungeon forever, which by Asgardian standards, I think is pretty much the same thing. In the meantime, Thor has led a lot of the Asgardians into the different realms out there to try to restore peace from what Loki has caused. And what I continue to love seeing here is just how much Thor has grown since the first Thor movie. Because now he actually comes off as a guy who is meant to be king. I mean, he's wiser, he's a leader, he puts the lives of the people he cares about before him. It shows how much he has grown. And for the people who didn't really like the first Thor movie, you see Thor with all of his powers throughout this movie. And as I've always said, it's so great to see this guy fight with his powers because he is just such a badass. I mean, he's just an unbelievable fighter, especially with Mjolnir, that allows him to fly and shoot lightning and just beat the shit out of his enemies. And through his great leadership skills, he's been able to pacify the Nine Realms, which is great, especially with the Bifrost now being reconstruction, which can basically realign the Nine Realms together again. And as a result, Odin is now able to tell Thor that he's able to become king now, but that's not really what's on Thor's mind. Jane Foster is still on his mind. But Odin's not really the biggest supporter to Thor and Jane's relationship, simply because Jane is immortal. She's not someone who could ultimately serve beside Thor as his queen. But what I like is you already see that Thor cares more about his relationship with Jane than becoming the king of Asgard. I think that worked out great for this. Now, getting back to Jane on Earth, you can see how much she continues to miss Thor. I mean, she's tried dating other guys, she's tried to focus on her work a bit, but she's just not able to do so. I mean, she hasn't seen or heard from Thor in 2 years. That could take an effect on anybody. However, Jane, Darcy, and Darcy's intern Ian, they're able to pick up something that's disturbing the laws of physics. They find it at this abandoned warehouse. They see all these kids there, and they're just taking a bunch of items that they can find and just throwing it off of this balcony into this invisible portal. Jane starts investigating the warehouse a little bit more. She separates herself from the group, but it only ends up with her being teleported into another world and getting infected by the Aether itself. Heimdall warns Thor that he can't see her anymore because she's been moved out of his range, and with that, Thor goes to Earth to find her. Thor is able to reunite with Jane, but the second she sees Thor, she bitch slaps him twice in the face for being gone for 2 years, especially in the fact that he was recently in New York fighting with the Avengers. And I'm just gonna say this right now, if you were gone for 2 years and you didn't make any attempt to contact your girlfriend, and all she does when she sees you for the first time is slap you in the face a couple times, you got it easy. Way easy. Might have a lot to do with the fact simply because Thor looks like Thor, I mean, come on. Thor, however, is immediately able to see that there is an unearthly force that's within Jane, and with that, he takes her and he brings her back to Asgard with him. Odin is able to deduce that it is the Aether that is inside her, and not only is that thing going to kill her, but it's going to cause catastrophic events to the entire universe. In the meantime, Frigga has come to visit Loki in his cell to finally talk to him a little bit about what happened on Earth. And this was an area in the movie that I really liked seeing, because we haven't really seen much of Frigga in the first movie, and she does play a big part in the Thor comics. I mean, she's Thor and Loki's mother, and seeing her interact with Loki, you know, talking about what he did was wrong, and, you know, her being all motherly towards him and affectionate towards him and trying to help him, it worked out awesome for this movie. It gave her so much more character development. But there are bigger problems for everyone to worry about. Malekith and the Dark Elves have awoken from their exile because of the Aether's release, and now they're coming for it. Malekith turns his Lieutenant Algrim into this cursor, which is basically a Dark Elf on steroids. and the two of them just storm into Asgard and just start wrecking shit. Thor and the Asgardians are trying to make their way through the chaos, and more importantly, Thor's trying to get to Jane because he knows that the Dark Elves are coming for her and they're gonna try to extract the Aether from her by any means necessary. Malekith and Algrim, they eventually do find Jane, but what's really cool is Frigga is actually able to protect her. And what's really cool is you see in this scene that Frigga is actually pretty hardcore. She's actually putting up a fight against these guys. Unfortunately, it's not enough and she eventually is killed by them. Which sucks because had Thor shown up just a smidge second earlier, he probably would have been able to save her. But luckily, he's still able to stop Malekith and Algrim from doing anything to Jane. But at the same time, Thor now knows that he has to take immediate action against these guys. Odin, however, orders Thor not to leave Asgard. They need to stay put and figure out a different plan of attack. And with that, Thor decides to just take matters into his own hands, but he knows he can't go after these guys alone. So who does he turn to help? Oh, no one special, just the guy who tried to take over Earth in the Avengers. He promises Loki that not only is this their chance to save the universe, but it is also their chance to avenge their mother's death together. Loki agrees to help, but everyone, including Thor, warns him that if there is even a slight chance that he's going to betray Thor, he's going to die. So with Loki's help, the two of them, along with Jane, are able to escape Asgard. But what's awesome about this scene is just seeing how much of a smartass Loki is. I mean, he's just talking shit to everyone. He's trolling Thor so hardcore in this scene. He's just being a really witty and shit-talking dick, and it added so much humor to the scene, which was awesome. But what is great about this scene is you do feel like Thor and Loki, somewhere along the lines, are starting to rebuild their brother relationship with each other. Until everything looks like it goes to shit when they go to confront Malekith, and Loki just stabs Thor, cuts off Thor's hand, and throws him at Malekith's feet. Loki talks about how he didn't give a shit about Frigga, all he wanted was Thor and Odin dead. And with that, Loki offers Jane to Malekith, and Malekith just starts to extract the Aether from her. And the whole time you're watching it, it's just like, Loki, you motherfucker. But nope, the movie throws you another curveball, and you realize this was just all a big plan by Thor and Loki. Loki uses his illusions to regrow Thor's hand, and Thor now uses Mjolnir to fire lightning at the Aether, seemingly destroying it. Unfortunately, because the Aether is an infinity stone, Thor is not able to destroy it, and Malekith just absorbs it for himself, and now he's going to use it to destroy the 9 realms. In the meantime, Loki is able to kill Algrim, but not before Algrim stabs Loki and seemingly kills him too. And it's a moment that just has you sitting there like, did they really just kill off Loki? Which really makes you feel for Thor now, because not only did he just lose his mother, but it looks like he just lost his brother too. However, Thor and Jane realize there is one last plan they can use to try to stop Malekith. There's a convergence coming, which is going to align all 9 of the realms together. Malekith is going to take his place at the center of this convergence on Earth, and from there he'll just use the Aether to take out all of the 9 realms at once. However, Thor and Jane are able to reunite with Darcy, Ian, and also Eric Selvig. Eric Selvig was just recently released from a mental hospital because naturally after he was mind controlled by Loki, he went just a little bit bananas after that. But he's also been able to build the scientific equipment that can interfere with the various portals that will emerge from the convergence. So now we get to the final conflict, and it's awesome. Thor and Malekith are just throwing down hardcore with each other, which is already great. But at the same time, Jane, Selvig, and the others, they're just using these devices to interfere with the portals being caused by the convergence. And as a result, it leads to Thor and Malekith just being transported to various different realms and continuing their fight basically all over the universe. It's really awesome. However, Thor knows he can't continue this fight forever. Eventually, Malekith is going to be able to use the Aether to destroy everything. And in one final attempt, he's able to not only release the Aether from Malekith, but he's able to use these devices to transport Malekith into a different dimension, which kills him. So now all of the 9 realms are saved, and Asgard now has the Aether in its possession. Thor then returns to Asgard, and he tells Odin of Loki's sacrifice, and also in the fact that he cannot take over as the king of Asgard. He tells Odin that he will continue to serve as a protector for Asgard and all the other realms, but he cannot serve as a king if Jane cannot be his queen. So with that, Odin allows Thor to leave, and Thor makes his way back to Earth, only to discover that the Odin that Thor was talking to was in fact just Loki in a hologram on the throne of Asgard. Yep, Loki didn't fool me once, he fooled me twice in this movie, so shame on me, I guess. This just raises a lot more questions though. You know, what happened to Odin? How was Loki able to take this throne for himself? I can't wait to see how it pans out in Thor Ragnarok. I think it's gonna be awesome. Then we get a mid-credit scene with Volstagg and Sif. They go to visit this man known as the Collector. We see them give him the Aether to entrust him with, because since they already have the Tesseract, it would be too dangerous to have two Infinity Stones so close together. But the second the two of them leave, the Collector just looks at the Aether and he just says, 1 down. 5 to go. I can't wait to see all the Infinity Stones come together. It's just gonna... So all in all, I think Thor the Dark World is a really good movie. Chris Hemsworth still kills it as Thor. I really love the relationship between Thor and Jane Foster in this movie. You really do buy that they love each other. I love that they did give Frigga more of a role in this movie. I thought that worked out great for it. Tom Hiddleston as Loki continues to be one of the best casting decisions by Marvel ever. I mean, he just owns this role. He's funny, he's deceptive, he's always up to something. You don't know if you can trust him. It adds so much tension and suspense for this movie. The action scenes and the fight scenes are really cool. Everything looks great visually. It was really awesome to see another Infinity Stone in the MCU. My gripes with this movie, however, are 1, I don't think Malekith is the most memorable villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, yes, he is a really bad guy, and he does what he needs to do as the villain for this movie. He's just not as memorable as some of the other great villains from this series. And also, similar to Iron Man 3, this movie didn't know what tone it wanted to be at times. You know, it shifted a lot from being serious to being funny. I didn't think that worked out too well for it at times. But in the end, although I do like Thor better than Thor the Dark World, I still think Thor the Dark World is a great addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it helps keep everything rolling really well for Phase 2 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.